Hello! I want to talk about something major and scary that could happen soon. Look at the sun shining, I'll put it over here. And not a lot of people are talking about it. Hardly any at all. So I want to get it out there. Did I say it's Friday, March 13th, 2026 yet? Alright, let's get that on record. Just because things are happening so quickly. I'm walking the doggy. We're out looking for morel mushrooms or morels. I haven't found any yet. And it's prime time right now, and I'm in a prime location, so they should be popping up if I find the right spot. But anyway, I think there could be some major shit happening real soon that can affect everybody in a really, really, really bad way. And I don't know if anybody's talking. I don't think I've heard somebody talk about all the things that I'm going to talk about that are contributing or causing it. So I wanted to get it out there, get easier video formats, too long to type. I'm gonna, you don't need to be looking at my ugly mug since we're here in the beautiful forest, in the wilderness of Oregon. Hold on a second, I'm walking on a logging road. Let me change my camera around. Alright, stay here. Oh, the doggy's pulling on me. There, that's a better view for you all. It's a private logging road behind gates. I've got permission to be back here. So, let's do a little game theory where we, if this happens, then that'll happen kind of a thing. Sort of a logical extrapolation, if you will. Oh, the wildflowers are starting to come out. I think there's a chance of this stuff happening that's not getting talked about. If somebody is talking about it, it's not getting talked about it enough. And it could be a real aw shit kind of a situation. And it's about Iran and how everybody in the United States might be negatively impacted in not too distant future. And I'm not talking about bombs landing in the United States. Actually, it might be worse than that. Not nuclear. So, when I say this, that, or the other thing, we're using game theory. Like if you're looking at a chessboard and say, okay, if he moves this piece, then I'll move that piece, and then that piece will move, and he'll probably move that piece, and then I'll move this piece, kind of a thing. So it's not a prediction. It's a discussion about what might happen and what the ramifications would be. God, it's so gorgeous out here. And here's what's going on. So, as of today, I think we're in day 13 or something of the war. And there's lots of critters come through here. He's smelling them all. We got lots of wildlife around here. And so here's what's happening is the Iran has surprised Israel and the United States in a lot of ways by their resiliency, by their capabilities, and sort of the lack of capabilities on behalf of the United States and Israel. And so right now, the Iran has the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed. Trump offered to pay for the insurance so private ships will pass through, and since they can't buy insurance in a wartime. But the ships are like, I'm not going to go in there and get bombed. What good does insurance do you if you're dead? right? So that was a nothing burger. That didn't so that was a non-solution. How'd that end up in the road? It fell from up there. See that spot? And it's over here now. Oh. Anyway, winter damage. So Iran apparently has not placed mines in the strait, even though the government claims they have, the United States government claims they have, because they're allowing, or they've said they're allowed, I'm not there to witness it, they said they would allow Chinese, they made a deal with China where China could have safe passage. And so that allows China to get the oil that they need. And China doesn't care who they buy their oil from, as long as they buy their oil. And that also allows Iran to have an income, because they need to, to keep building new drones, etc. So, if there were mines there, then obviously they wouldn't be able to make a deal with China. And then Iran has told other Gulf Coast nations, they gave a short list of demands that if they met, then they would allow safe passage, having the United States withdraw from their countries, etc., etc. So, right now, Iran controls the strait. 20-something% of the world's oil passes through there. And so even though the United States hardly gets any oil from the strait, 20% of the supply affects the price of oil around the globe. But here's the real problem. The real problem is we have wealthy nations, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Oman or Omar, I forget, I'm out walking. Anyway, you can look at a map, Kuwait, there's a lot of nations in there. And Iran, right in the beginning of the war, took out the United States military bases, bombed them, damaged/destroyed them. Whereas those nations probably thought, or made a deal, that if they allow the United States to have a base there, that would somehow infer protection, and that proved to not be the case. So the bases basically don't do any good to those nations now, except they make them a liability, because Iran can hit them again if they cooperate with the United States. So there's a risk to those nations cooperating with the United States, and there doesn't appear to be much of a benefit, if any at all. So it looks like it's turned out to be a liability. Well, the problem is that area of the world, those nations, they have two things basically, and it's sand and oil. That's pretty much it. They have to import 80% of their food. They have to use their desalination plants for a bunch of their water, most of their water. A desalination plant is a real easy target for Iran to hit. And that could take, months to years, probably years easily, to rebuild. So with a $20,000 drone or a missile, Iran can take out any desalination plant it wants. Iran can also bomb their oil producing facilities, and so then they can't sell oil, and then they can't buy food. And I don't know how much food they have stockpiled, but it's not enough to last them years, maybe months, maybe not, maybe weeks, I don't know. But certainly only a short period of time before they don't have food to feed their people. And without a desalination plant, people don't have water. So Iran has, I'll try not to use profanity, but let's just say Iran has has them under their thumb. So that means Iran can dictate terms to, if they want to export their oil and have safe passage, Iran gets to dictate if they can do that or not. So they're basically, Iran has 4 aces. You know, they've got maybe a pair of 2s at best, if that, probably not, maybe a king high. And so Iran's holds all the cards. Iran can dictate conditions. So in order for Iran to allow them to export oil, and this doesn't even include the Strait, because, you know, there's a pipeline, I believe it's from the EAU, that goes out and bypasses the Strait. But Iran can take out their desalination plant or their refineries. So even if they can ship it via trucks and via the pipeline overland or through Saudi Arabia, that still doesn't get them out from under the thumb of Iran. So they are beholden to Iran. So what demands could Iran make that could affect the United States? With basically every country in the Gulf Coast region and beyond. I mean, Iran's been striking. Oh, there goes this ground squirrel. Lucky Kilo didn't see it because he'll bolt. Come on, Kilo. He smells it now. Come on. Come on. There it goes that way. Come on. No. Come on. So Iran gets to dictate terms to the entire Gulf Coast region and beyond. And so what can they do? Well, Iran's got to rebuild their military to keep shooting missiles. So they can say, okay, you got to pay us a tax. You want to pass through the Strait, or you want us to not bomb you, you got to pay us a tax. So now that gives Iran income beyond just their oil exports, where they can rebuild their military and build it up even stronger and stockpile even more missiles. But then, what else does that impact? Well, right now, or prior to the war, nations like Qatar, who just gave Trump a jumbo jet for free, they make a ton of money. And they pump oil out of the ground. They sell it to India, China, Japan, and then they take in dollars in return. Why dollars? Because it's a petrodollar system. We made a deal with them that they agreed to only sell their oil in dollars. So when India wants to buy oil, come on, Kilo. When India wants to buy oil from a Gulf Coast country, first they have to go out and buy dollars. So they have to take their Indian rubles, whatever country it is, and they have to go buy dollars. And then they take those dollars and then they give it to the country and they get oil in return. Well, what does that do? That creates artificial demand for dollars, right? Because if they could pay for it in their own currency, or pay for it in gold, or anything else, another currency, then they don't need to go out and buy dollars. Well, what's that do for the demand of dollars? Obviously, it goes way down. Well, what happens when demand goes down for something? What happens to the price? Well, same supply, less demand, price goes down. So the value of the dollar goes down. So now you can see how that can impact the United States. Because all of a sudden, all of the Gulf Coast countries and beyond, now they don't need dollars. And so now they have to stop buying dollars. Iran can dictate the currency, maybe they make them buy or use Iranian dollars, whatever they call their currency. I'll have to look that up. Okay, so now the value of the dollar drops. So, you got, 150 grand, whatever, in your 401k, that you're counting on that for your retirement. And now all of a sudden, you thought that was going to last you, 5 years, whatever, in retirement. And it's going to earn interest and compound and blah, blah, blah. Well, now all of a sudden, the value of that, it just got shot down, reduced. Okay, well, that sucks. Everything that the United States has, especially whatever it has to import, now costs a lot more. As if the tariffs weren't bad enough. But this is across the board. This affects everything you buy. So the prices go way up. Okay, so you can see how that impacts everybody right now. $50 for a McDonald's hamburger. Not a prediction, just making a point. Okay, so yeah, that kind of sucks. I can see that. And okay, so then what happens beyond that? Well, what have those countries been doing with their trade surplus and their extra dollars? They've been investing it, right? Well, where have they been investing it? A lot of it's been flowing into the U.S. stock market. So if all of a sudden that major source of revenue that's been automatically poured into the stock market every month, if all of a sudden that gets reduced, then the stock market goes down. So now that 150K that you had or whatever in your 401k, now all of a sudden that drops. Now it might drop to 120 or 100 or who knows what. I'm just throwing numbers out there. See that green bush right there? There were bear dens in that before. I'm not going any over there. All right, come on, Kilo, let's go back this way. So then, now you got a double whammy of the value of the dollar going down and the value of the stock market going down. Well, what else do they buy besides stocks? Predominantly, Kilo, no. Kilo, no. So predominantly, they buy U.S. treasuries. They loan the money to the U.S. government to fund the deficit. All right, the government sells them IOUs called treasuries and bonds. And so they give that cash to the government. The government spends it right away on interest payments for debt they already borrowed, on the military, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. And so now there's less money flowing in, buying those IOUs, loaning the United States money. Okay, well now things are starting to compound here because we've got the value of the dollar goes down, stock market goes down, and funding access to capital for the United States goes down. All right, so now the United States has to offer a lot higher interest in order to be able to attract money for people to invest in government debt. So now your interest rates have gone up. All right, this is starting to look kind of ugly now, isn't it? Well, okay, then let's just look at the military solution, because that's looks like a non-starter with all those, perfect storm of those three things coming at you at once. Well, Iran is not Afghanistan. Afghanistan, they lived in little caves. They rode horses. They drove Toyota pickup trucks with a dude with an AK-47 in the back of the truck. All right? And the massive United States military fought them for 20 years and lost. Iran is not Afghanistan. Iraq, wide open flat desert, like shooting fish in a barrel. Iran's mountains, surrounded by mountains. It's a very fortified country. There's a reason why the Persian Empire has been around for 3,000 years or more. They're heavily fortified by mountains. And Iran, who's been preparing this for decades, and we kind of taught them to when we invaded Iraq, right? They've been preparing for this for decades with using their oil money, because they weren't investing in the U.S. stock market. They weren't loaning their money to the United States. They were spending it on their military. So they have massive underground cities where they keep their missiles. The Navy has they just released it. When Trump came out and said, oh, we blew up all their boats, their Navy, they released a video of a sophisticated underground tunnel that was like lined with boats like rows and like lots of them, all sitting there waiting. And I saw a video the United States released where, oh, look we identified a tunnel entrance and we bombed it. So now we took that out. Really? So you didn't think the Iranians might not have thought of that? You don't think they have other entrances? Or maybe they've dug out so all they have to do is dig another 20 feet and pop out of a new entrance somewhere? I mean, I'm a gold prospector, hobbyist, 5th generation. You know, when they would mine material, they wouldn't haul all the muck out of the mine. They would just mine it and put it into an area they already mined. So obviously they've thought of this, and so they probably have equipment underground to dig. I mean, they have to dig the tunnels in the first place, so they'll probably leave the equipment down there. So they can keep digging the tunnels. They can pop out on the side of a mountain somewhere. No satellite would ever catch it until, you know, they pop out, a missile comes out, boom, and they go back in. So the United States cannot win this war with an air battle alone. I've been listening to tons of ex-military colonels and stuff, and they've been explaining how it's not possible to win the war with an air battle alone. So then you say, okay, well, let's send in the ground troops in. We'll kick their ass. So I think it was McGregor that was saying, really? You're going to send in like the 82nd Airborne? They're all going to be paratrooping, and half of them are going to get shot before they even hit the ground. And when they hit the ground, you know, they've got the Iranian military in fortified positions just waiting for them. And I think it was today, it might have been yesterday, but I saw a video from an Iranian official. So yeah, we've been planning for it. Bring it. We're not worried. Iran is not the Taliban. Iran, I heard that Iran has, its military is 1 million men. 1 million. Iran has over 90 million people in the population. It's way larger than Iraq, way larger than Afghanistan. It's, like I said, heavily fortified with mountain ranges. They have trade with Russia, so Russia, there's just a new shipment on a big, huge carrier plane, a jumbo, cargo plane. Just landed and they showed video of offloading brand new Russian attack helicopters. So they have trade. They're selling oil to China. They have money coming in. So just to equal their force, we would have to send in 1 million soldiers. We don't have that. I mean, for every soldier, you've got to have, I don't know, 8 or 9 more behind them for the supply chain and all the logistics and everything. We're on the other side of the world. So we don't have the military large enough for a ground war. So if the United States wants to do a ground war, they're going to have to implement a draft. Those are your choices. And even if it did implement a draft, then we're going to go invade fortified positions by a very sophisticated and large and concealed military that's been training for this very scenario for decades, and we expect to win? Couldn't even beat the Taliban with their Toyota trucks and horses and AK-47s. By the way, the United States provided them those AK-47s. There's a movie about it. So that's not a very attractive scenario, certainly not a high probability, and that would be very expensive and very prolonged. You know, it's 20 years in Afghanistan might look like a picnic. And if you draft people, how motivated are they going to be to strap on a helmet, grab a rifle, and go to these rugged mountains in Iran to go fight in Iran for Middle East oil? They really going to be motivated? How many are going to go to Canada and Mexico? How many are going to say, I'm a conscientious objector? How many are going to, when the bullets start flying, just say, fuck this, I'm hiding behind this truck right here. You stick your neck out and fire a shot. I'm not. So drafted people are not going to be very motivated. This isn't Vietnam, where everybody was still jacked up on all that World War II boomer propaganda that they were exposed to all their lives. So they're not going to be that effective of a fighting force. Okay, well, what does that leave? Oh, the nuclear option. Turn them into glass. Really? So let's explore that option. So now the United States is the only nation that's ever dropped a nuclear bomb. They dropped 2 of them in Japan, and it killed about 100,000 people each in 2 different cities. Nagasaki and Okinawa. No, not Okinawa. What the hell is the other one? Anyway, you get the point. Now, yeah, so it killed 100,000 people, each bomb, but it didn't kill anybody in Tokyo. You know, it didn't kill anybody in the north of Japan. But I know that was we now have an atomic bomb, way more powerful. But still, I mean, if the volcano, the caldera in Yellowstone blows up, you know, people downwind of that thing are going to be in deep doo-doo, deep ash, you know, and people in Nebraska and Iowa, northern Colorado. But the people in San Diego aren't going to be affected, at least minimally affected, maybe a year later. The people in Honolulu aren't going to be affected. So how many nukes you got to drop to turn the whole country into glass, like people ignorantly say? Well, let's just say we do that. Let's just assume we have enough nuclear bombs to drop enough to impact the surface area and all those remote rugged mountains, which is a hell of a lot more ground to cover than just a flat ground. Well, they've got massive underground cities. Their military is underground. You don't think they've thought about fortifying them against nuclear bombs? Of course they have. So, you know, they close the big 4 foot thick concrete door, you know, with a lead inside of it, and they hide out underground. So that's not an option, at least not a short-term option. You know, I don't know how long they can live down there. I'm sure that you think they might have supplies down there. Gee, I bet they figured that one out. Meanwhile, while they're down there, they can still keep shooting as far as their missiles will reach. So that's not a short-term solution. So let's say that Iran keeps the straits closed for a month. Okay, things will start to get a little sketchy. You know, food supplies start getting low. Well, what about 6 months? What about 9 months? What about a year? Now, every single nation within reach of Iran's missiles must do whatever Iran tells it to do. The United States, which has pretty much already been eliminated from the bases. I mean, the U.S. sent the military personnel off of the bases and into hotels in the city, which is why Iran bombed some hotels over there. All of the rich people in Dubai are fleeing if they can. Same thing with Tel Aviv. So a lot of that money that was there is leaving and it ain't coming back. Those people are going to go to Singapore or something, or Vancouver, Canada or somewhere. So there's no way, the U.S. cannot just say, okay, we changed our mind, we're going home, because Iran's still going to control that strait. And they're going to control the entire Gulf Coast region. And they're going to continue to economically harm the United States with the dollar losing a tremendous amount of value, stock market losing a tremendous amount of value, the United States government losing a significant source for funding the budget deficits. So now can you start to see how that can impact every American in a big frickin' way and in a not too distant future? And how do you prevent it? The only real option I can think of is for the United States to meet whatever demands Iran asks for and basically surrender. I don't think the United States can win this war. And I think it's going to harm. It could harm every person around the globe, especially in the United States. The government can't afford to pay its bills. It's going to have to slash the military, which nobody wants to join anyway. Nobody wants to go over there and fight for oil. It can't afford to pay the interest on the debt. So then new nations, even if the United States doesn't default, they're going to look at, you don't have to be a genius to look at the finances and say, I don't know if we're going to get our money back, guys. Let's go buy some Japanese bonds instead. Let's go buy some gold instead. And they have been buying gold instead of the United States debt because the United States already defaulted on its debt. Did you know that? And I'm not talking historically. I'm talking during the last administration. The United States defaulted on its debt. Russia had invested like $330 billion into United States treasuries, and then Biden said, you invaded Ukraine, we're not going to pay you, and we're going to keep your money. So, China and everybody else woke up and said, oh, okay, the United States will get some crazy politician at a moment's notice can default on their debt. Maybe we shouldn't put so many eggs in that basket. So the United States could be in deep shit here, people. Like deep, deep, deep shit. Like people's paychecks, can afford 2 loaves of bread kind of deep shit. And they all can't go on welfare because that requires government money. So we could be in a real pickle. And I don't see an easy way out of it, short of surrendering to Iran and giving in to whatever their demands are. So basically, as of the last week or so, Iran is the new superpower in the Middle East. The United States is effectively kicked out of the Middle East, which is not a bad thing, except we want their oil money, but that's gone. And Iran, with the ability to dictate terms and charge tax for passage, is going to become very wealthy, a very wealthy nation, because they just have to extort it out of the people, out of the other nations, if they want to purchase oil from the Gulf. So we're in deep shit here, people. And I'm back home, so over and out.